All right. Like if you watched the game last night, then this definitely applies to you. You had to take a deep breath a couple different times if you're a fan of sports or of either one of those teams. I know Tommy V was watching. Tony was at JPJ watching with thousands of his classmates at Virginia. So it was exciting. And so today, every once in a while, I like to do something where I look at my bookshelf or I'll look through my podcast playlist and I decide to create a story and help myself focus. We all have these goofy games that we do with ourselves. This is one of the things that I like to do because this reminds me that I create my story, right? Just like Virginia created their story. Nobody had ever gone to a national championship and won before from Virginia. So why did they think they could do it? Nobody had ever gone to it from Texas Tech as far as I know, or they said in 40 years or something. I'm not sure what it was, or maybe it was in 40 years that two teams hadn't met before, where they hadn't met before in the title game. And so it's the odds were against them in every way, shape, or form, but they're telling themselves a different story. Now, the better you get at telling yourselves a different story that's positive, the better you're going to be. So I'm rocking the Virginia t-shirt today, and I've got another Virginia school up on my head here today for Liberty. So I'm gonna go through what I do sometimes in the morning. This is gonna seem goofy, and it only takes me a minute, but I get used to being creative, right? That's one way to tap into flow. And I get used to putting things together in my head so that I'm looking for things that I can grab from throughout the day to help me with my story. So, and your story is whatever you're telling yourself that is leading you hopefully towards your goals. Sometimes the things that we tell ourselves don't lead us towards our goals, they actually take us away from our goals. So get used to telling yourself stories that lead you towards your goals and get you motivated to take the actions you need to take that are going to actually push you forward. So the other thing that's helpful though, before I even get into this, is surrounding yourself with with people and with conversations and relationships and ideas and thoughts and things that also move you forward. Other people who are thinking, how can I get better at this? How can I, whatever, X, Y, and Z that's going to enhance my life and optimize what I can do. And so the beauty of being a coach is that every conversation I have throughout the day, every conversation moves me forward and the other person forward. That's the entire goal. So that's exciting. So anyways, I'm going to relate this to the UVA basketball team because a year ago, these guys were ousted from the tournament. And for the first time, a number 16 team beat a number 1 team, meaning the number 1 seed. So a top 4 team in the country got knocked out by a team that was in the top 64. Very big difference, obviously. So, but the reason why I bring this to your attention is one of the things that I've heard several different great leaders say is your past does not equal your future, right? It might equal your present right this second, but it doesn't equal your future. And it doesn't even equal your present. So be here and now and think about it and think about where you want to be and know that if you put forth your full effort and energy and attention and you come up with a different strategy and different tactics, probably the same techniques actually, but you can move forward and progress. And so Coach Bennett got those guys believing in that, and Tony got them to move forward and look at where they're at, and it's unbelievable. But they couldn't be looking back to get to where they are, right? They probably took some time to focus on that. They did a bunch of team building, leadership stuff, and they grew, and then they grew into the team that could win a national title instead of the team that could be maybe in the Final Four or even in the finals, but they're the team that had that stick-to-itiveness. They were stoic, they were resilient, they had more fun. You could see it, there was a joy, they had a bigger base, they had a greater good, a bigger purpose than just, it seemed like than just basketball, but it was a common goal, and you could see that group flow. It was incredible to watch, and especially when you're somebody who studies flow and human performance, you could see these things, and it was exceptional. So anyways, let's take us through the book thing this morning, meaning I'm going to create the stories out looking at some of the books. So I've got 20 books here or so. And so for starters, the obstacle was the way, right? If they didn't have that big obstacle last year with UMBC, they who knows? They probably wouldn't have won a championship this year. They were looking to crush it, so they got in their head what story they wanted to tell themselves not just at the end of the day, but every day. And that's the difference. They got really clear on what each one of them brought to the table, the elements of themselves and how that applied for the entire group of the team, right? They discovered what the secret was, how they could actually attract what they were looking to bring into their lives. Maybe there was a lack of focus before that. Maybe UMBC just executed at a massively high level and nothing went wrong for them. It was just on that given day the other team was better. I'm not sure. But they needed to make sure that they could be not necessarily never be sick again, but they needed to get right on their nutrition and what they're doing, their recovery, on every other aspect to make sure that when they came to each game, they brought everything they could. And then if something happened within the game, they did the best they could to get back to wherever they needed to. They got clear on the inflammation syndrome of all these excessive things in life, not just nutrition that causes things to be inflamed and kind of clogs your system, but also the other things, the other distractions in life that weren't pulling them closer to what they're looking to. I saw that they got right on some of the wisdom of the ages. I saw the coaches were focusing them on leadership skills and other things outside of the usual training techniques or methodologies or tactics. They were looking at things that were at a higher level, like you'd expect from like a corporate culture or some sort of like personal development stuff. They all understood how to awaken the giant within and take complete ownership of what they're doing and not be blaming things. And in order to do that, they needed to live on purpose, like Dan Millman talks about. Because in order to live on purpose, you have to know what that purpose is, right? There has to be that individual purpose and then a common purpose. And when there's a common purpose, you can make sure that you're moving forward because you kind of know where you're trying to get. They got a bulletproof mentality, not just a bulletproof diet like Dave Asprey talks about, but a bulletproof mentality. When did we see this? You saw this almost every step of the way, right? They lost a little bit of focus during the end of the regular season and the early postseason ACC tournament, and then that probably really solidified things and pulled them back into, hey, here's a reminder again that on any given day anybody can win. So it's really the person who shows up the most frequently, the most consistently, with the most level of intention and like team culture and a group dynamic that is going to do it. They understood that there was a journey, like Baron Batiste talks about, into power. It wasn't just one action, it wasn't step, it was a journey. And it started before they lost to UMBC the year before, but then it continued through that. And like we talked about earlier, the obstacle was the way. They also got clear on the facts and fallacies, not necessarily just of fitness, but the facts and fallacies of what they're telling themselves in their heads. They probably had some old, broken down mindset, philosophy, filters, or whatever that they're saying, hey, I'm good enough to do this or to get away with not doing things at the highest level. And that changed, and then boom, ascension. And so they were probably had some super training along the way. They realized what they brought to the table and what they needed to do to heighten their impact, not just on the moment, but on the momentum as well. They probably made sure that they found more influencers in their life. And I don't just mean influencers as it relates to another person, but the influencers of the things in their life, meaning their training, their food, their nutrition, the thoughts that they have in their heads, the things that they're looking at, the things that they're reading. And then they got clear on, like Coach Grover talks about, with being relentless, right? Showing up and knowing, hey, I can do this, I will do this, but also my brother next to me can also do this as well. So we're gonna do this together. So it's not on anyone's back. And if we can all get clear, like we were talking about in the beginning, we can have that whole rise of Superman moment because we will have the opportunity to all be on the same page, right? And then we can take advantage of all of our sports talent together. But if we're in a situation where we just need to grind it out, we just need to be stoic about it, we know that, like Joe DeSanta says, we can Spartan up. Now, the funny thing is, in order to do that, you need to have the ability to have that sense of clarity, have that sense of bigger than me kind of a way of looking at things. And that means you have to sit down in the beginning and get clear on your goals. And you have to sit down in the beginning and say, what am I willing to do for this? How important is this for me? What am I willing to let go in my life in order to get this to go in my life? And at the end of the day, the who's figured it out.